All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Shawn Porter says he wants more than anything else to get a rematch with Errol Spence Jr. in a fight that he believes that he won. And Errol Spence Jr. is telling him to hit the bricks. He's got better things to do. So let's talk about what Errol Spence Jr. had to say about a Shawn Porter rematch and what that means for the welterweight division in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So the welterweight division, one of the most packed divisions in boxing, has a potential fight that could take place that I think would be very, very exciting, and a fight that one of the contestants definitely deserves, and that would be a rematch between Errol Spence Jr. and Shawn Porter. If you guys recall, the last fight that either one of these guys had were against each other, and that was for a unification fight for the IBF welterweight title and the 147-pound WBC title. And that fight, it was between Shawn Porter, who's the WBC champion, and the IBF champion, Errol Spence Jr., in a very, very competitive fight, a thrilling fight. Back and forth action over 12 rounds. I think in the 11th round, Errol Spence Jr. winds up dropping Shawn Porter, and I think that was the difference in the fight in a lot of people's eyes. The scorecards actually were a little bit wider than that, so I think regardless of that knockout, Errol Spence Jr. was going to win that fight, but it was a terrific fight. And Shawn Porter is saying that he wants the rematch. Now, my take on it is that Shawn Porter absolutely positively deserves a rematch in that fight. It was a very, very competitive fight, closer than a lot of people thought it would be. Shawn Porter proved that he's a dog and proved that he's a top-notch welterweight. However, Errol Spence Jr. says he's got bigger fish to fry, so that's not going to be happening anytime soon. So let's look at what fish that Errol Spence Jr. has to fry are. And those are clearly the other two champions in the welterweight division, one being Manny Pacquiao and the other one being Terence Crawford. And there's also another potential fight that is a huge fight for Errol Spence Jr. if he moves up, and that's a fight with Canelo Alvarez. And so with the three of those things on the plate, or potential for Errol Spence Jr., having a rematch with Shawn Porter is not something that is really, having the rematch with Shawn Porter isn't something that is going to happen right away. The Terence Crawford fight is, between two champions, and probably the fight that most hardcore boxing fans really want to see, because those two guys are considered to be the top 147 pounders. And then you have, of course, Manny Pacquiao, who's also considered a top 147 pounder, but is, the kind of the money man at 147 pounds. And both Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford and everybody else that's out there is trying to fight Manny Pacquiao. So the Manny Pacquiao fight is probably at welterweight is the biggest fight for Errol Spence Jr. because that is a guaranteed pay-per-view fight. That fight's probably going to do 800, 900,000 pay-per-view buys, provided, the economy and all that stuff is conducive for that. But, and then you have Errol Spence Jr., who is having a more difficult time making 147 pounds, also has the option of moving up to 154, 160 pounds and getting a fight with Canelo Alvarez. And that's a huge money fight for him. Also, the Terence Crawford fight, Errol Spence said that after he gets done unifying the belts that are held by the PBC, which, presumably would be the fight with Manny Pacquiao, then he wanted to go and become undisputed at welterweight by fighting Terence Crawford. So those are all options for Errol Spence Jr., and all of them I do believe are better options for for Errol Spence Jr. than the Shawn Porter rematch. Now, if none of those other fights can be made, then hey man, I would say, make the Shawn Porter fight. But even then, Errol Spence Jr. has a mandatory title defense that he has to take against, I think he has two title mandatories. One is Danny Garcia, and the other one is Abukaraev and I'm probably killing his name, Abdulkarev who's the IBF mandatory, little guy who just beat out of Eastern European little guy that just beat Luis Collazo to become the mandatory for the IBF. So those are all of the things that Errol Spence Jr. has available to him. And, at the best, Shawn Porter fight would fit somewhere between between Danny Garcia and the fight with Terence Crawford. Maybe because I would rather see the rematch with Shawn Porter before I saw a fight with Danny Garcia. It just so happens that, that's mandated by the WBC. So, the fight has to go, right? So I don't think that there's anything wrong with Errol Spence Jr. saying, hey man, he's got other fish to fry. That rematch ain't happening. Now from the Shawn Porter scenario, man, I think that Errol Spence Jr. saying that dude should be a wake-up call. Not a wake-up call to him, but look, man, Shawn Porter's in a funny position. He's in a funny position because if you look at with the exception of Manny Pacquiao, right? And there's Manny Pacquiao and there's Terence Crawford, who are two of the champions, the WBO and the WBA champion. And then Errol Spence Jr. is the IBF and WBC. So he's already fought Errol Spence, right? And he's held the IBF and the WBC at a point in time. Terence Crawford's promoter is saying that, even if Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter wanted to make that fight, his question is, who's going to pay for it? Is there enough money for the fight, in the fight? But, so it's just a tough situation for him. He's also, of all the other challengers, the non-title holders, right, that are out there, the Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, Ugas, Shawn Porter's already fought on all of these guys, man. So, Shawn Porter's just in a really, really tough position as far as getting another championship. I mean, the dude has had, but I think that he deserves one. It's just, I don't know who he's going to be able to fight. And I think that he really is missing an opportunity, though, in really trying to force the Terence Crawford fight. Because the Terence Crawford fight is something for Shawn Porter that has some amount of buzz around it because people are actually asking for that fight. Terence Crawford is also in a position where he doesn't really have anybody that is tremendously competitive with him over at Top Rank. Now, quite honestly, there might not be anybody that is tremendously competitive with Terence Crawford, other than maybe Errol Spence Jr. But at the very least, Shawn Porter could push for that fight because I think that's the most realistic title shot that there is for Shawn Porter is Terence Crawford because at the very least, you might be able to. God, I don't even know, man. Could he talk him down? Is he going to be willing to take less money? I don't know, man. I just don't think that after Bob Arum said that about even if those guys agree that, who's going to pay for it, man, when Bob Arum starts talking about, who's going to pay for fights, perfectly well that fight's not going to happen. That's what he said about, it being who were the other financially unrealistic, fights that he mentioned for Terence Crawford. I think he also mentioned Mikey Garcia and how Mikey Garcia is going to want, too much money to fight Terence Crawford. So, I just don't know, man. Shawn Porter, the Ugas, I just think he's going to probably be the odd man out. The best option other than maybe Terence Crawford for him is a rematch with Keith Thurman. Right, Keith Thurman and he fought for I think it was the unification fight, the WBC for the WBC and the WBA, and he lost to Keith Thurman. But Shawn Porter is now saying that Keith Thurman's not the fighter that he beat. Well, maybe Shawn Porter needs to go and fight Keith Thurman. I think that'd be an entertaining fight. It would show whether that it's either going to show that Keith Thurman is not the fighter. It could be like a bit of a make or break fight for Shawn Porter. Because if he loses to Keith Thurman, then, especially after Keith Thurman having lost to Manny Pacquiao, it's going to be real hard to pitch that, he's a that he deserves to get a shot against those title holders. On the other hand, if he goes in there and he dominates Keith Thurman, and he dominates Keith Thurman more so than Manny Pacquiao did, because the Manny Pacquiao Keith Thurman fight was pretty close, then maybe in that particular instance, then that could, boost Shawn Porter's credibility and put him in a position where maybe he can get a mandatory shot at the WBA. So, he's going to have to go the mandatory route and, force somebody to give him a shot, or, he can find, like I said, he can find Keith Thurman, who seems like he's, a little bit of in a limbo himself, and fight Keith Thurman, and then maybe he can set up, the championship fights. But all in all, it's really tough for Shawn Porter to push Errol Spence Jr. into this fight. It's reasonable that Errol Spence would go fight those other fights first, but Shawn Porter's going to have to do something. Otherwise, the majority of the excitement that we're going to get out of him is wondering what suit he's going to wear in his next Fox telecast, when he's covering a fight. But anyway, it is what it is. You let me know what you think in the comment section about Shawn Porter and Errol Spence. And with that, I'm out. Peace.